All right, so welcome into our upper respiratory muscle focus today. I want you to have some support for your ribs and a light amount of support for your neck, okay? So you're gonna have your bolster horizontal, your blanket or blankets behind that, and purposely have some space between your bolster and the blankets for your chest to open. Even though the arms go there, it's the chest that opens. So I've got a block in front of the bolster and it's across horizontal, and I'm going to actually see if I can sit up onto it. And as I sit onto the block so that the back zone has a little bit of touch into both block and bolster. And no surprises here for your ribs. I want you to find that when you have your tailbone on the block, you could bring it higher, that you could make your block under your tailbone this high and kind of play with it because it'll bring you to more of an inversion. It might be fun to try. You can always switch it. But as your head lowers back, the higher that support is under your hips. For instance, if you add the block height, then you'll feel more comfortable with all these blankets. But please just use the smallest amount you need for feeling comfort in the neck. So if you're pushing your chin to your chest, get rid of one of them, okay? So enough support. Now, we get a hold of our sandbag or bag of rice, anything that we have that is weight. I suppose if you have, even if you warm up something, right, to support the rib cage, that can be comforting. But as that sand is across the ribs, go out with the sandbag or the weight versus lengthwise right now. And then as you extend your legs down, you might have a wall to go against. You might decide that's not important for your entry into your breathing. It's okay. Finding how the respiratory muscles focus would be kind of enlightening today. Okay, so the weight of my head rests back. I just separate each side of the chest by opening the arms. And you can always scooch down on the props if you feel like I just want more chest opener. Okay, you can always put another blanket on top of the bolster so that the chest really rises and expands out with the weight on it. Now letting the eyes rest back. If you have an eye pillow and it can just stay on, it doesn't slide off, you can also place an eye pillow across your eyelids and simply sense the movement of the rib cage with your breath. You might feel like it's not quite as expansive as you were hoping. Right, so as you feel that length in the front vine of the spine, open up the chest. Even visualize that, because that can help out our back space, because it might feel tender in the back. It might feel a little bit compressed with a back bend. So we use the props to support, but sometimes you need to change the leg angle. Perhaps you might need to walk your feet in instead of extending the legs. And if you want to add the sand now to the upper thighs, if your legs aren't bending, which is fine if you need to, you do what feels comfortable for your back. So if you need to bend your knees next, that's fine. But if you have that sand option, you can place it down to the upper thighs and feeling where that sensation of length is in the front, right, into the thighs, into the emergence of the quads and the pelvis, creating that support and awareness in that space. Now let's take about 4 more rounds of breath. And you divide the breath up into that category of slow and deep, and then just let the exhalation relax out. Whether that's soundful for you, whether you like to listen to that purposeful breath, or feel the breath shifting internally. Now, those of you that want to shift to a cobbler's pose, you might try that next before we shift into inversion. So you can add your sand back to your ribs, maybe a little lower than the entry, and then bring the knees to point up and the soles of the feet to each other and the knees part out. Now, I want to offer some variation on this today, just depending on how the timing is for your inner thigh muscles to experience that stretch. So this might be a lot to all of a sudden load the hip into with both feet together, for a minute or two. You might decide to kind of break off a little bit and just place the left bottom foot down and the right ankle over to the left knee and just kind of swing into a figure 4 pose. And just feeling one inner leg at a time, trying to stretch, right? So this would be, I would say this is an entry level way to go into the hip, but it might feel just a little more attainable than push the feet together, knees out, because there's a myriad of possible challenges on this one, right? It could be back, it could be knee, it could be that it just feels tight and it doesn't move outwards easily, they just kind of shake. So if it's shaky or you have a cast, okay, you might find figure 4 could be a little easier. So you got to divvy that up for the second side in the next few moments. Those of us in cobbler, just have the sand at the core and begin to prepare the circulation event right towards the collarbones coming up. So we're going to go into an inversion. So we build it. We're building it up right now. We have the respiratory muscles dynamic with pressure on them, or if you don't have sand on it, you still have the ribs lifting with the bolster. Okay. Now bring the knees to center. Now it's kind of exciting to get into an inversion now. Move your blanket back so you only have one. If you were only with one in the beginning, make sure it's not too bulky and it's not under your neck area. It's just under your skull, right at the shelf at the back of your skull. That's a good spot. Okay. Now you're going to walk your feet in, so the knees are going to point up a little bit outwards. And what might be helpful is to have a moment, if you still have that sand, and just kind of notice, okay, this rib space is supported by the bolster, but in a moment we're going to move the bolster just a little bit below. Okay, I don't want you to go too far down because the back gets unhappy. So take off your Sand-Aid. All right, keep those heels up. And then my head is on one blanket, not much height, and I'm going to reach the bolster. Maybe I got the handles on the bolster so I can kind of hook my thumbs in there. And I'm going to slide back. Don't make it too big of an event here. And then just nudge the bolster down a couple inches first. Land your tailbone, make sure it's on the bolster. Might be on the very edge. And then bring the legs up. If your findings are, number one, your blanket went too far down the neck, you got to move that back. But if you decide I want my bolster, not so far down or a little farther up my back line, it's up to you. But this is usually the easiest for your back muscles, is to have your tailbone right at the edge. So I could kind of, if I was to wiggle a little bit, I almost feel that block. And then get a belt or a scarf or anything you have you can connect together. Make a big loop. And now, as I bend the knees, I'll take the loop to my feet and push out. And if it stays connected, you can let it go and just take some time for gravity to help that lymph passively drain, right? We want it to passively drain towards the collarbones. And the arrival into the inversion might be a little shaky, right, with the legs. So you can always respond by holding onto the belt, right, and tug on it. And that should kind of stop the jittery feel right in the legs. It's pretty instant. But if you're comfortable without holding, bring the arms to goalpost position. All right, now I almost wish my blanket was the other direction, but I'll switch it. I'll see if I can. Okay, I'm just going to turn it. This way my arms can stretch back. Okay, as long as that second blanket's not piling up on the one under your head, but keeping that energy of openness through the the chest. We just worked with the leg position here, opening, right? Adductor, leg pit, groin, also armpit, okay? Anything we can do, right, for support for immune system here. So feeling that arch. No need to refine it right now. Just find your alignment. Trust in the process here with reversing that flow from the legs. Right? Sometimes we get retention in our legs or inflammation in the knees. Give it a few moments. If it gets really tingly or uncomfortable, of course you come out, right? You can take a few moments. If it's too much, just shift and I'll show you where we're going with it. Okay. Now feel that arch in the back. Bend the legs. Okay. Feel that the feet shift back. Okay. As if you're going to consider doing a back somersault, but we will pass on somersaults today. And then as I reach up, I bend the knees and I slide, I hold the belt and I slide the feet together. I have to be a little careful that my foot is not at the buckle because those usually unbuckle when feet push on them. And as I bring the legs up to Viparita Karani, right, reverse action, I want you to find just that tilt at the tailbone tilting, tailbone tilt warnings, okay? So the legs are kind of grouped as one, like a uni leg. And now feeling how that right foot pushes up a little more than the left, slide that left foot out of the belt, and then let's start to come into brain float. Okay, if you like to go fast into that because you just can't wait to float your brain, you can go with it. You might be able to add my pillow on this one. But I like to kind of establish my ground here on this one. So I'll take my sand, I'll place it on the top of the left thigh. Then I'll redirect my belt to a little bit more length, right? Loosen it up. A good measurement is if you reach the loop towards the crown of your head with what you think your leg is straight up and down, vertical. You could think it is. It probably is back, but yeah, that's good. You definitely need a good 10-foot belt on these. It's kind of important. So when I scoop up the back of my head, so if you don't have a belt that's long enough, you can always use a scarf, right? Sometimes if you have a really long one, or if you're okay with letting it lose its form, okay? So when I hold on to the back of my skull here, I'm going to let my head relax back into the belt and my arms open. You could bring the arms to reach back. It's about openings in restorative, not about stretchings, like how far I can go to the edge. I'm using my props to support me to lean into it and just let go. Left foot probably turns out. See if it does turn out a lot. If you really are feeling the left thigh rotate, you might even move your left leg a little bit out to that left side. Just a little bit so your foot's not completely turned down on the floor. Now, if your belt's really short and you're not content with trying this, you can always take a hold of the belt, let both palms just press together, prayer position, and the belt is between the thumb and the index fingers in that wedge space. And then you just stretch the arms back. This works with any length belt. Okay, so share the focus with the hamstring. I'm feeling the legs like, the extremity, the levers that they are. And changing the circulation in our legs. Keep it simple. If you want to shift to have the arms holding the belt overhead, go for it. That feels good for you. Again, eye pillow perhaps. I'll bring that up a few times today, but no worries if you don't have one. Belly lifts. on the in-breath and relaxes on the out-breath. You know, just feeling that leg directionally, the right leg. Okay, the left leg, well, we're just going to let it be for now. We'll lose its sand. We'll let it just extend down out of the torso, stretching the waist, getting that core length. Okay, so you might push the sandbag down. It's gonna probably fall off. So you're gonna walk your hands up on the belt and hold the belt with your left hand. Okay, cross the right leg over to the left. Yep, you probably will find that the bottom leg will try to stay kind of extended. You can definitely bend the left leg. This is just to kind of filter from the back line to the sideline muscles of the leg, not something where we're trying to go to our very end range, just flushing out the leg, because the leg extremity, right, helps the circulation to our core, shifting circulation in the core and to the heart. Massaging the organs with the breath. Okay, now with that right leg straight-ish, come on up with it, straight upside down. Bring the left foot up into the belt, just kind of sneak it in besides the right. Both feet straight up to that uni leg moments. The knees, if they turn out quite a bit, see if you can kind of pivot them back so the kneecaps are facing the same direction. And on a good day, on a good legs up, they're facing the same direction. Okay, now right leg lower, switcheroo. As you extend, you might be a brain floater that just goes right into it and then adds your sand. Some like to get into brain float as soon as they can, and then they get their sand, add it to the right thigh. Some of us will add the sand first, or whatever weight you might have, and then we'll bring the belt. So the belt is, if you hold the back of your skull, that shelf at the back, right, that's the attachment, right, for the trap. But I have to admit, I don't have mine every time exactly there. Today it is working out pretty well. But sometimes I have it a little bit higher. And it's probably because of the length of your belt, right? So if you have your belt, if it's too tight, right, it's too short, you might find that it holds really snug to that occiput area, that zone at the back of the skull where you can feel that shelf that kind of holds into. And some of us might decide, oh, this is too much hamstring. Wake up. So maybe you decide to have your belt, palms together, stretching back. And maybe the leg is not as far back. So you might find this works better sometimes. And some days it just feels better. For me, this feels with the brain float. I like the concentration just in my brain, my head, my neck from this one. And the arms open and relax. So it's up to you. But you have options, don't you? So feel where that front of the right thigh just rests. I'm not trying to push. If I'm lucky enough to have my foot at the wall, it would be great. But I just didn't set that up. So there are things you can do to kind of fuss around to accentuate the alignment and the purpose. But there are so many props that we use that there's enough to think on and to consider where to put. So one other thing might be too much. So a little micro bend of that left leg is amazing. Okay, and little nano bend. Careful that your foot is not on the buckle. Okay, don't push into a buckle. Maybe an eye pillow. You already have a back pillow. If your head is tilted from the brain float, you can feel that circulation in the throat, right? The thyroid, this endocrine gland area in the throat. It's a nice little soak. Okay, so just feeling not just that it's a muscular reaction, but right, it goes a little bit deeper in these poses on a circulation level. Now bring the hands to the belt if you don't have them already with the belt. Then you'll slide it off the back of your head. If you're holding the belt right now, you'll just bring it together. And don't worry about that sandbag. Just if it's there, let it be. Again, it will go on its own. Right hand holds the belt. Left leg still has the belt. And then as you cross that left leg over, take your time. I like to experiment with sometimes a leg crossover with my base leg, a little bendy, but kind of more extendy. So I can kind of feel where do I move from in my hip, right? So again, I've got my bolster to cushion me, but as I cross over, I'm good, even if the wall is kind of going to stop me from going a little bit further out. I'm good with the experience in my outer leg connecting into the root of my hip socket. You know, all this area feels some heat. So try to find a still point. So you go towards the end range that you're going to choose right now, or the range you choose, and then just be. Even if it's just moments, instead of trying to plot your way further and further, just accept where your range is, and then be. Flex the foot. It only helps. That would be a good one too, because most stuff we're doing, there's a lot of flexing right at the base for so many poses. Okay. And then as you soften into that left knee, let's come on back into center, and then just take the belt off and take a ball or a block. If you don't have a ball, use a block on its most narrow setting. It's got to be this one. It can't be too big. You don't want the block this far out. And then you'll just simply kind of reset your hips. Kind of go, okay, I got my, and if I bring my knees to my chest, I can feel where it broadens at the back of the pelvis. So you might play with that, kind of rocking a little bit side to side on the pelvi. Arms out, straight out to the sides. Bring the knees side to side. You can use a block on the side, on each side of the bolster for a little bumper block. I think I'll be okay without it today. But as you cross over, kind of notice, can you motion your knees towards your arm? That's a nice little adjustment for most of us in our lower thoracic. I don't want you to be pushing too much in the lumbar, so feel that base spine that's on the bolster. Just let it cross over. You kind of feel when you cross over that the arms open helps that stretch of the ribs. Okay, I know we're getting all stretchy. We're pulling ourselves apart here. Okay, last couple. Okay, really feel that cross over in the, for me, the leg is obvious, but the hip, yes, but the ribs, challenge. You kind of surrender to that drop over before we come off of the bolster, at least this direction. Okay, then alternate knee to chest. That means we get rid of the ball, put it over to the left side, and then alternate. You can hug the back of the thigh. One leg stretches down, one leg draws in. Take a few moments of these, alternating knee towards the chest. Mine is not going to touch my chest. You know, what a silly instruction when it's kind of rare that people put their knee on their chest on that song. All right, so feel the back all warmed up. It's like, oh, we got a nice warmed up back. At least I got that. Got a warm back. So you're going to let the knees swing over to the left, and you're going to just roll your ribs, and then gently down the bolster. Okay, now come on up. Take your block that may be near your hip and push it to the back of your space. So what I'm going to do is turn my blankies. I like to have a good stack for side sage. Some of you might decide, yeah, I don't need that, but I think you might want to have at least enough that you can pack down with your, I mean, this is somewhat heavy, your head. You may not feel, but you hold it up a lot. So when you put the weight into the blanket, it should feel good to reach into that. So taking a sandbag, tug it across, have a block, as I said, 1 or 2 overhead, you choose. Fall perhaps under the right knee. Got my left hip close to the bolster. And then as I lean in, I'm going to add my sand to my hip zone. Now it can go hip, it can go ribs, it can go to either spot. You can mingle it a little, like maybe you turn so it kind of sinks into both. But sometimes that falls. So I like to have kind of the fall proof one. I just put it across my hip. And it's weight bearing. I mean, we're not wearing weighted vests for class, but that is one way to help your bones, right? Weight, right? And not that different, right? Weighted vest, but you have that. Maybe I'll wear a weighted vest to class sometime. Okay, so the right hip is stretching, the right arm is overhead, and my left arm is right between the 2 prop sets, my bolster and my blankets. Okay, so really settle that length of your side body. And just feeling where the waist is reaching. If you feel like, oh, I want to kind of warm it up a bit, let that top leg, let it slide back. It's going to depend on your knee, I imagine, right? If your knee feels like it's a little bit nervous about that, then just don't do it. Let the knee rest down. It can rest on your left foot. It can rest on the ball. But let the waist really start to stretch. Let the breath relax you. That's about what you got, huh? The breath relaxing you. That upper arm could stay reaching overhead. It could open out so your head just rolls a little bit on the back of your head on the blanket. And you might find that this left arm, we're all different, our levers are a little different with length. So I imagine there's some of us that this left arm might be really far through to the other side, and we're already rolled onto the right shoulder. That could be true. But for most of us, we're going to feel a little bit of that reach in the chest, so much that the attachment of the chest to the arm is stretching. You can feel that pec stretch. Feels good. Breathe. You can come out of it anytime. There's no pose police here. Okay, now if you get a lot of tingly and you kind of like that, I would say back off. Don't do too much getting to the point of losing sensation, right? That means you're losing blood flow. So it's not getting there, right? So that's a sign. Let's move out, like back towards something where we can put our palms into it. And then I want you to move the sand. It can drop off behind you, the sand drop off. And we're going to rotate. So we're going to put some awareness into the hands. So we're going to turn. So we're facing to floor. Go into floor. You're already on the floor, huh? Okay. Now pivot. If you need a blanket under the knees, add that. I feel okay without it, but if you do need a little padding or a towel, put that under the knees. Please do so if you need. And then have your bolster on top of your blanket or blankets if you're using one of them. Stretch out the back, but see if you can keep that reach of the back space. Let your head center between the arms. Yeah, please don't try to put your head on the floor. Okay. This is a reach. Okay, now Notice the awareness in the back here. Okay, how much you are able to you're able to expand and kind of hydrate these tissues. And then hands on ground, so press, feet touch towards the wall. If you got no wall space, it's okay, but the wall can be really helpful. Feet turn under, and I'm going to lift up, and I'm actually going to try to repeat that sensation in my upper back as I come into a supported dog pose. So you might find, you prefer it on the bolster, right? How much stretch you have in the upper body, but now you've got weight bearing, right? That's the key, resistance and circulation to the brain. Good stuff. You can let your head nod. Breathing. Okay, you can come down anytime. Okay, now I want you to go a little bit forward and back. So if your props are really close to you, I don't want them to hit your head. I want you to have your feet touch the wall and stretch forward, hips stretch down, chest up. And then reach the hips back towards a child's pose, but don't commit to it. No pose commitment now. Arching, chest up, sweeping back, hips reaching. Okay, feel that movement through the back. In breath and out breath. And just two more. So alternating up dog, really warming through the spine. Okay. Now, one more time, we're going to move into our front space. So as you put the bolster down lengthwise under your core, be sure you're far enough away from the wall that you don't jam the legs, they don't stay bending that much here. I reach, so my thigh lids are touching to the bolster, okay? So I do want to feel like it presses into my quad a little bit here. I don't want the bolster just here in my belly. I want it a little bit lower. So when I lower down, I can feel as I stretch my core, okay? And now if you got your blankets there, I would say take a moment here, just let your hands stack on top of each other. Feel a little bend in the knees. This is a little more bend than I need. Push a little way. You're like, the knees are going to have to bend anyway. I just don't want you to be pushed against the wall where you can't really stretch the legs out. That's why I want you to have enough distance, but you can touch it if you have one. As your head lowers to your hands, relax the rear. Right, so you want to let your rear relax here. You can tell when it grips up pretty quickly. It doesn't take much for the rear to grip. So purposely rest the chest, the heart, okay, now push your feet into the wall, or if they're on the ground, just let the toes hook under for a moment. Press back into the wall and start to feel that energy start to fill up into the legs as you press, and then lifting up the chest a little bit. Come into locust pose, arms stretch back besides the legs. Really feeling that tone, deep, deep inner tone. Right, you definitely are filled up from this kind of a back bend. Okay, now use the bolster, right? Even if you wiggle a little bit on it, press into your feet. See if you can bring your hands to your sacrum, so palms towards the ceiling. You can feel the tone in the glutes. They kind of wake up here a little bit. Your hands could rest top of the hand. Okay, now good work. That's not easy, right? Just to try to trust that thread of strength from your lower back into your rib cage. Now as you lower down, the hands come to Sphinx pose for a moment, elbows down, let the hands stretch forward. I'm going to put them under my warm blanket. That feels great. So I'm going to just let the feet reach back. So I'll stretch the top of my foot at the wall. That feels pretty good. They don't get much stretch anyway. Or you can have your feet down or push a little bit away from the wall. Okay. Now, unless we're toe shoes. You're probably not stretching your foot like this pretty much ever, huh? Okay, now with this connection of my arms, I'm going to slide my hands back, toes under, come into cat-cow before we do side sage on the next side. So round the back, chin to chest. Inhale, arch the spine, push the floor away. Exhale, round the back, chin to chest. Inhale, arch. Okay, now last one, kind of feel how you access that reach from your lower back into the rib cage. Chin in, tail under, back to neutral. Turn your bolster across, okay? I know technically this moves quick sometimes, but if it goes too fast, just take your time to get all your things set up. You got a bolster and a couple blankets on the other side of the bolster away from the wall. And then you're going to lean into that right hip and then start to get your way towards the right hip down, side sage pose. So the left hip is open and you're leaning. You might not think of this as a hip opener, I bet. It's kind of rare you would think this is a hip opening pose, but front of the leg is stretching, hip flexor. One of our best, right, for relaxing into stretching deeper abdominal. So just let your body weight lean. And then if you add the sand, okay, some people will add an eye pillow to their neck on this one. I've not found that to be anything but irritating to me, but you know, if you want to put your eye pillow, if it's a heavyish one, it would be probably comforting. If it's too light, it will be irritating. Okay, left arm reaches. If your sand feels like it's going to fall off, it's hard to relax. So for me, I've got to turn mine across. I give it a try. I go horizontal. And then I feel like it's there. And sometimes the sand lower feels really good. You might be surprised as long as you can find that expansion with your ribs on the breath. If they don't quite kind of feel like they're flowing, right, with movement, then maybe this would be too much with the sand low. It's like a sponge, right? It's expanding as you in-breath, hydrating, and then exhaling. Okay, left arm over, or you don't have to have it overhead. If that doesn't work for you right now, you can open the arm out. You can have the left hand resting on your bolster. Now let the spine relax into the stretch. And just breathe. Feeling that side relaxing so the back can relax before we come up and do our seated field work. Let your head find where it's comfortable for you. Could be tilting down to the blanket. Kind of study how you relax your jaw. Okay, now when we shift, I think what we'll do is this left hip it's a little internal rotation, right, with the knee. Okay, it's a little bit. So we're going to be moving it opposite direction when we come up to sitting. So what I want you to feel your way towards is that left arm, if it's extending behind you, kind of go, oh yeah, I can do that for a second. Don't have to overdo it, but feel how that ranges when you lie on your side. Okay? And then we'll see what that range is like when we sit on our sitting bones. Okay, so turn to the right thigh, just push the sand away, and then as you come up, take a seat on your bolster. All right. I'm going to turn my heat on. It's getting chilly. Okay, so what I want you to do is take a seat and actually, hold on, closing up the room. Take a seat with your right leg stretching out. Okay, so I'm sitting center of my bolster. My right leg is out. And my left leg, it's really not touching my thigh, to be honest, for me. Maybe you've learned that before, like you've learned left, so for this one, because we have a bolster, I'm hoping you're on some height. So that allows this left hip to kind of open up, not jam. So if you have a sandbag, you put that on the left thigh, and I would encourage you to put something under the knee if it's not touching the ground easily. You don't want this knee to be kind of bouncing up and down. So if it just doesn't touch down, you can use a block, you can use a ball. I like the ball under the right knee personally because I don't like to lock my knee, but so I could use a block here and I can use a ball on the right leg. So I'm out with my leg, my levers. It's like the right leg is out to about 2 o'clock that's the farthest I'm gonna go. Okay. All right. So let's get our belt. And I want you to take a reach with this. So I was thinking about this side stretch, this side series. I was thinking about us putting like a blanket on top of the thigh that's out so you don't like round your back so much. I'm not saying you are, but I was trying to feel if that made a difference. But then I kind of came to the conclusion, I'm not sure it does. I think I'm trying to lie on the blanket now. So see if you can use this focus. Bring the belt forward, up. So my hand's holding it where it's comfy. So it's a little wider than shoulder width. I don't even know the width percentage, but it's easy to hold. Okay. So when I lift up, you might have to move the hands out a little bit further. You don't know the destination until you try. But I don't want you to go so far out. You have lost the ability to breathe in and get the ribs to expand. I don't want to go so far out it's flat. So I want to fill her up, and turn to the left. Okay? So feel your twist from the ribs up and rotating. And maybe you have to nod your head, maybe you tilt your head to the shoulder. Don't let the head get all tight about it. So feel, move the belt down. So it's about chest height when you take the twist. Oh, that's tricky. Pull with that left hand back. Okay. All right, just let go of the belt and reach the right hand for the left knee, the left hand back on the blanket. I think that's easier, huh? What do you think? I mean, this is, it's a good exercise in trying to gain that support for this rib section to not collapse. But it's likely going to be more interesting for you to just rest on your leg with your right hand, I'm assuming. So feel that turn. And it doesn't go more, right? You stop at a certain point. It ends. Okay, now the right side of the waist has got to lift, right? Because you're turning left. So when you go over to that side stretch, I want you to visualize there's a blanket here. You could add one if you want, but you're going to reach to that right side. So you're going to reach the elbow on the inside of the leg. You can use your belt. This is traditional. We would use our belt under our right foot. I know we use that. Hold on, and then let the left arm stretch over. Okay. And again, you could go, okay, well, she thought we should use a blanket. Maybe I'll try it. You can always wad up a blanket, put it on top of your thigh, and lean in there. Okay. I just found that for me, I realized I was just trying to lie into the blanket, not try to keep that lift. So up to you. It's only temporary. Okay. Each of these shapes, right, is temporary, but they build on each other. Okay, now where you feel that reach, turn your head to the right leg. Get a little rotation. The cumulative effect of our poses. Okay, now come on up. I'm going to show a pretty deep twist option. Those of you take your belt off. If you decide I ain't going into a deep twist, I'll show you an option. So option one would be I'm not going into a deep twist. So I got my block in front. I put my right foot onto it. I turn to the right with my left hand to my right knee, and here it is. This is pretty good. Those of us that are going to go a little bit further into it, we're going to move our sand as high on the hip as we can get it. It still lands on the thigh. My knee goes a little forward, and then I do my darnest to get this right foot on the other side of my left knee. Okay. Then I bring my left arm to that right leg, and I try to first position it. So hold the leg to stretch your right hip. Then hook the elbow to that right leg, and then turn. Yeah, all of this for my organs. Okay. Your digestive tract is going to get kind of tightened up, right? It's going to get this little tourniquet effect. So if you ate a lot of food before, this is not going to feel too good. Hence, don't eat a lot before class. Okay. That's definitely important. You want the body to process the poses, the circulation, versus a lot of food, right? So you want to find this is the nourishment from the pose. Feel the turn to the right. Feel the heart lift. The right hand could be a little more passive, or it could be active. So really use your rib strength here to turn, not so much these extremities like your wrist, right? You can do the turn without your right hand really that active. You can even wrap it around and hold your sandbag handle, right? Okay, take another few moments. Connect all the way up to your throat. Maybe even swallow a couple times. And now feel that you're turning to the right, maybe you are. And then you're going to loosen up that pressure with the left arm. You can hug the knee in to kind of seal the deal, come center. Okay, now let's take that right leg back. So we're going to move the sand aside. We're going to pull the blanket in from behind us. I'm actually cozy with two. I think many of you in pigeon don't like two blankets. You like to have one so you drop down a little deeper. Watch out for blocks behind you. And then take the right leg back, and the left knee points out. So we've kind of set it up nicely in the sequence, because that knee is out. It may be supported. I don't think you're going to want to push the knee up on anything, but you might need your left rear to have something. So if you need a ball under your left rear, that's okay, or a blanket or a towel. And then as you lower down, you can have your blocks under your elbows, or you can have your elbows all the way to the ground. Deep stretch. Yeah, if you're trying to do this and it's too much, right? You're feeling, I want to stretch my hip this way, but it's too much right now. You can do an option where it would be just simple sitting on your bolster. If the leg is challenged, like it's in a cast or something, you can put another blanket on your bolster as well, so you have more height, and then take that forward fold. Okay, that's an option. That's a good one. Another one, if the leg is, has inflammation and so forth, which might happen with that situation, you can always come over to the wall, and head is on nothing, and left ankle to right knee, right foot up at the wall. And that would be a pigeon pose right on the back with the wall under your foot. That's a good one. A really good pigeon pose. Okay, so just keep that in mind. If you've got some kind of fluid retention, just take a wall pigeon. Okay. All right, and some of us are in for sleeping pigeon right now. Now don't wake up the pigeons. So feeling that soak into the hip. And then let the elbows press down, let the chest stretch forwards. Those of you with your foot at the wall, give yourself a little extra time in it before you shift to the second side series that we're going to. And then we'll all come basically to our left rear. Then walk the hands back. If you're already sitting on the bolster, you're going to easily join up. come back to center, bring your right foot across, left leg out, right foot towards left thigh, get your sandbag. Okay, I want you to add it so that sandbag is going to be on the right thigh. And when you join that turn, you can also add the focus of block under right knee, ball under left knee. Maybe you don't need those things, but take that belt. Again, you can use a belt holding to help you turn. You can use things like a block, right? You can bring it up. You can bring the block back to stretch the triceps and turn. Yeah, that's a kind of challenging one for my breath when I use the block. It already trips up the shoulder a bit. So I think for today, I like this rib spaces with the belt kind of pulling. So if you have a block, you're squeezing. If you have a belt, you're pulling. It depends on that success in your ribs. I know, when you don't know what to do, help out your respiratory muscles. When in doubt, respiratory out. So turning to the right with the belt at the shoulder, or sorry, heart, shoulder level, or the belt could go up. All up to you. If you have trouble with this sinking feeling, happens, you might find that the belt up high is just going to be aggravating to your shoulder. So just pull yourself along. Just turn. Yeah, don't worry about your hips moving because you don't want to be tightening your lumbar. You want this to stay steady on the bolster, right? It's above it. It's that lowest part of your spine. You want to move your ribs. Okay, then just put the belt down, left hand to right knee. Feel the right shoulder. Oh, come on, shoulder. Yeah, and one side might be a little more challenged. You might even look down at your arm and notice it's rolling in on the elbow more on one side than the other. So your work is on perhaps left hand to the right side of the chest and just pushing back. This hand might need just one blanket. You might feel like that's just hindering my progress here. So now I got my shoulder moving back much, much better without that extra blanket. Keep that left foot awake. It's getting ready for your reach. Okay. Now, what might be good is to bring your right hand to your rib space, the right side. Have that lower rib space. And then you could lasso in your left foot. Get the belt to your left foot and then take that lean side stretch. So this is considered a, what's it called? Revolve to knee, right? So we're trying to pull with our left hand with the belt on my foot. Right? This is holding my foot, my leg is down. And when I'm pulling, I'm concentrating on my bicep, right? And then as I rotate, turn through the ribs, breathe, let the waist stretch. Yeah, you don't have to go farther into it. But just keep in mind that if you feel like you need to lean your head down, okay, that's up to you, I guess. But try to get the waist to stretch, smooth it out. Smooth it out with the breath. And now feel how the side, we leaned into the left to get the right to stretch. So when we come on up, okay, then we're going to take that full twist. This is cool. So I'm going to move my block. You're either going to have your block under your foot, some of us, or some of us will be here. Some of us will be at wall pigeon. And some will take the foot across. Don't go anywhere, ball. To the right leg. My sand, I like to have it high up. It's always going to kind of lower down. So make it a hip hugger. I'm going to get that sandbag up on that side. And then when I lower down into my sitting bones, I kind of feel the weight from right to left. The left side's going to be hiked up. And as I pull, I lift up my heart. And then I take that turn. Okay, so I'm now taking all the influences of my extremities into effect. So I'm twisting to the left. I bring the right elbow to the left leg, and the left hand can reach back to a blanket. You can also reach the arm around towards the sandbag and get the sandbag with your left hand and hold on to it and pull. Okay, so feel the L bone. Yeah, there you go. If you find that support of the sand, what might occur is the groins might grip up a bit to try to hold on to these things. So noticing the groins, try to relax the right inner thigh, and then just lifting up at the heart. I know, easy said, but to do it, right, that takes a compilation of kind of inner order, inner organization, the inner organization. So when the ribs move, the organs try to figure it out, right? Belly soft. You want to let the abdominals relax when you twist to strengthen the diaphragm. That's a key message, right, for yoga poses, twists. Okay, now, even though we're sitting, right, we're going to turn back towards front. We're going to move the sand off. Okay, so now we're going to take the pigeon, even if I mentioned it last pose. Now we're going to do it. So I suppose, like, if you had leg issue, right, something on the leg, you couldn't move around, you could stay with a longer wall pigeon, you could do that. But when you take that left leg back, if you're going to try for it, and you might be okay on one side more than the other, that's true. But when you lean down, the front of that left thigh is extending. That's the beauty of sleeping pigeon, right? Is the hip flexor stretches on one side, and then you stretch the outer rotator on the other side. So block or not, you can have your elbows on the ground, you can bring your palms together. Just feeling where the seat centers. Yeah, that's an ongoing constellation, right, of thought here, right, with living with a pelvis, right, your center of gravity. So here we are, right, with the stretch in the inner leg, the weight into the forearms, breathing. And as you feel the weight motion in a forward bend, let's kind of blend them together, right? What benefit we have for the stretch in the hip and the groins. So we'll use gravity to help us with this next one. We use it all the time in class, but when you walk the hands on back, if you're already on your back, you're going to join us a little bit. You'll be there before all of us, but you're going to shift your left leg forward and then come down off of your bolster. Yeah, I intended us to do an Upavista, so let's do Upavista. So we'll take a bolster to the wall. If you don't have a wall, it can prop up on the ground. And you might have a blanket, maybe two. I know you have a couple likely, but I want you to have something under your seat, and then you'll take Upavista. Okay, so that means my bolster, my short end of my bolster is at the base of the wall. I lift it up and I lean forward. Okay, now my legs are extending out. This feels actually pretty groovy for me right now. It doesn't always. Usually my leg kind of locks a bit. So you could bend your knees if that feels a little bit better for your hips and your hamstrings. You can extend the legs so they're in a wide stance, like a V. So they're out at about 10 and 2-ish here. But feel that reach from the back body. If you need to scoot back away from the wall or your bolster to get a deeper stretch, go for it. You can always put your bolster on the ground and just hug it if you feel an urge to hug your bolster. Okay, get the back line to reach. Okay, now we'll lower down our bolster horizontal across the base of the mat. If you've got a wall, use that wall against the bolster against it. And then slide down off any blanket so you're down to 1. And the blanket should be really, really low fold. I don't want you to have it very high for your neck. In fact, some of us might not even use it for bridge pose. So push it back. So you've got some space to work with here. Okay, if you've got sand, put it over to your, near your left side. Okay, so it'll be easy to slide across. Okay, now we got a ball or a block, and we'll place that center of the knees, and we press our feet into the bolster. If you want to get higher up on the back into like a shoulder standish thing, you could definitely have your feet at the wall, but you need to scoot closer to the wall. Okay. I find I actually really love to feel that type of lift, but I just seem to slip and slide. So if I had like a tank top on or something, it would be way better. But sometimes it's determined by what you're wearing. Okay. So feet push down. I lift up and it plants on my upper back pretty nicely, and I stretch the hips up into bridge, and then I just lower down. So the higher the feet are, like let's say you put a chair under the seat of a chair under your feet, you go higher up too. So if you have a chair, right, or a stool you could put against the wall, that would get you higher up on the back. But I'm good. I'm getting a little massage through my back. I don't need to go higher right now, but you can. So kind of feel when you lift the hips up this next time, arching. This is a nice big arch through our back, but it feels good. And then as your spine lowers down, okay, bring the knees to your chest, okay? Take a ball. I want you to place it under the left rear. If you don't have a ball, you'll do windshield wiper, okay? So you're going to let the weight lean into the ball, and then you're going to roll. And make sure the rolling goes all the way towards the border of the hip. So that means you might be kind of leaning to the left hip side and massaging deeper into the glute, okay? So if you don't have a softball, you could use a tennis ball. That's pretty intense. It's pretty intense in tennis. The softer one is going to help a bit more with that surface muscle, the hydration, the collagen turnover, because it's just not going to be as aggressive. So you won't be bracing for the reaction in your muscles. So the softer, I think, is just better for your lymph flow. It's good stuff. Softball. You can go side to side a little faster. If you're not going to use the ball or take a break from it, just have your feet on the bolster and do a windshield wiper. You can even just take a break and go, okay, I'll just move my knees and see how that works in my glutes. And then I'm going to move the ball over to the right rear. So I'm just going to tilt my knees to the left, put the ball right around where my rear is. And then as I bring my knees center, I just get up on the ball. So I don't have to push into my feet to get onto it. I just roll. Even though you might think I can get on the ball with pushing, maybe a little less, just of that tendency to brace to get into these shapes. Feeling the condition that your glute is in, whatever side, right? Whether it's towards the border of the glute to the hip, feels tight. If it's pretty, snarly in there, you can always move the ball a little bit higher, right? So I have mine right at the rear. Some people move it up because this area can be really tender and just feels like, oh, it's good to roll. Whether it's a softball or a tennis ball. Okay, you're wondering why would we use a tennis ball? Well, some people don't have a softball. More people have tennis balls, I imagine, but not me. Okay, so when you are pressing, let the knees do anything. They don't have to be moving side to side. In fact, that focus is probably incorrect on this one. Usually when you watch people in person try to learn it, they try to move their knees a lot, but they're not really wagging their tail. So they're not kind of connecting to the pelvis. So try to get comfy. It's the only pelvis you got. Get comfy with how you push into the ball, and then last few moments before we do a full hip crossover, okay? So as you lean your hips to the left, if that's the side you're moving off of, I want you to bring that left leg and cross it over to the bolster. So some of you like your feet on the bolster like this and cross the leg over and swing the knees to the right and put a ball here. But I prefer the bolster on the side of my mat, but some of you, again, are very comfortable with the other and don't want this one. So you want to find what works for you to put the bolster in a spot that your leg can cross over to the right. So the top leg right now for me is my left leg as I cross over. So I am on my right hip regardless. That's more where I'm pushing. So sand is important here. I think it's critical for this one to get the move into the hip and the support of the bolster under the leg. And then you can add a ball. The blanket probably should be a little higher than when we had the bridge poses. A little more satisfying, just under the skull, not under my neck, and then ball to sacrum. Okay, stretch the left arm open. Okay, feel that rib rotation. Let your right hand rest on the floor on you. Just breathing slow. And put an eye pillow on. Really soak in the twist. You can always maneuver the knee a little farther down, just further away, downwards. And that could make all the difference in the world for you to feel the most effective hip stretch. Just take a couple more moments here. Settling sensation through the chest. Okay, now moving the ball, then the sand, and then you decide you might want to just windshield wiper the knees, just a little side to side. If you happen to have your feet on the bolster, that's kind of nice because your feet are up. Sand doesn't have to be in your belly. I'm just kind of checking this one out to see how it feels. Not too good, so I think I'd rather not have it on the belly. Okay, now the bolster goes to the left. You make the choice. You're going to move your bolster or keep it under your feet, but let the bottom leg bend, right? We learned that from the previous, right? If your feet are on the bolster, leg crosses, you got to have the bottom leg bendy so that you're reaching across the lower back has a wonderful arch on this one. Ball goes to the sacrum area now, and then sand, place it up on that outer right hip. If it's all too much, okay, you can go minus your sand. You might be surprised how it helps the leg get over to the left side, and it definitely stretches into the hip a little deeper. You know, if you have the sand in a certain current, sometimes it doesn't help your ball stay though. I've kind of found it varies a bit with that, how you apply that support with the ball. Because for me, I feel on this side, it's just barely supporting me. So you could go with or without it. You could nudge it in if it just keeps flowing away. Spend more energy on what's working, okay? So arm is open, head rolls to the right. Eye pillow maybe if your head's not rolling. Or just save it for the next last pose, huh? Open the heart. Really support yourself. Okay, now we move the ball, then the sand. And then we take our time to roll and then to go to the wall. So you're going to roll to the left, bring the hands back to your hips, pull the blanket in. If you're close to a wall space or you need to go set up at the wall, you want to just position your bolster right against it, all the way up, tucked to the wall. You can always put a blanket stack if you don't have a bolster. Anything that would support you right now that you want to add, like your sand comes nearby, your eye pillow, an extra blanket to put over your torso. But come to the very edge of your bolster when you're sitting up with your rear next to the wall. It's almost as if you're trying to get your sitting bones at the wall. Okay, that's what I would recommend the most, is it feels really awkward. Okay, seat to the wall, lower down into a little cannonball shape, and then see if you can roll and bring the legs up. You might surprise yourself. The closer you get your tush, well, the closer you get your tush to the wall, huh? Okay. If you're a little distant from the wall, that's still going to give you the same benefit for reversing the flow towards the heart and the brain. Now, this blanket seems a little bulky for me. I'm going to play with it. Okay. You'll notice if your head can land back, if you have an eye pillow, you don't want your head really rounding, right? You want your chin into your chest. So if you have your sand support on your feet, A. If you have a blanket, B, put it on your core if you like that. You choose. You want a little space with the feet pushing the sand up. You don't want them crammed together. So that way the kneecaps are great. They're going the direction I want them to. Okay. I'm going to turn the feet in a little bit just so I can kind of orient my pelvis to calm. I have some space between me and the wall, which I'm just going to accept right now. Yes, I sometimes like to be right up against it, but it just ain't happening. So back of the pelvis has that little bit of an arch. It's both a little roundy feeling and archy feeling. Okay. And then if you have the eye pillow, place it across the eyes, the eyelids, and just letting that weight sink in. You might feel almost so welcome. The weight on your feet, the weight on your eyes, or you can put a little towel across your eyes. Surprising how something pressing onto you can feel so grounding and centering for where you are. Let the belly gently move with the breath. And just feel the belly flow. Maybe expands out and relaxes back towards the spine. You can study either the ribs or the belly, but you can also just exist and receive the pose. Just training the circulation to reverse back towards the heart and the brain. Let's take about 5 more rounds of breath. See if you can feel where maybe the back belly would be. So if you in-breath, the belly swells, massaging the organs. And as you out-breath, the belly drops back. It almost feels as if the back belly would be kind of around kidney area. You just kind of visualize where things are flowing inside the body. Or maybe another interpretation is good. And do that final scan where you can soften the eyes, the face, the jaw. If you feel like you need to soak this one up a little longer, then do so. If you need to stay upside down up to 15 minutes, it's good. So we want to be in this one about 5 to 15. Or if the feet get tingly, then it's time to come out. So release the eye pillow, or you can leave it on, I guess, all that brightness, moving the feet away from the wall. And then as you soften through the legs, you can feel that leg press, so good for the bones. Hands reach to the sand or sliding anything off and feeling just that knee towards chest. Now this is a knee towards chest. Okay, we finally got to that one. That stretch in the kidneys, big back stretch. And just let your body roll to the side. Let your arms help supply you with support to come up. And bring yourself back up again to your bolster against the wall. Bring your hands to join heart center. And then as we merge our focus to breathe in wellness to yourself and to others out there. Take a deep breath in. And with exhalation, bowing into that space behind